Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's edition of the Gamut Network. I feel like I say this often, but this is truly one of my favorite people on the planet right here on our show. So not only I'm so professionally grateful that we get to talk about the amazing things that he has done and has created, but personally, I just adore this man, his family, and everything that he stands for. So with that, Billy, welcome to the show.
Well, Minnie, thank you so much for the warm welcome. It's my honor to be here today.
Thank you. So I always love to start with just telling a bit about your background, because that always kind of leads us into where you are today. So tell us a little bit about the story of Billy.
Yeah, no problem. So my name is Billy Price. I am a co-founder of the company Billy Footwear. We're a shoe company, and our shoes have zippers in them, which creates an unrestricted entry into the shoes. Now, how that happened, how we came to be, how I became an entrepreneur, that's a bit of a story. I'm a wheelchair user. That wasn't always the case. When I was a teenager I was a freshman in college. And within the first couple of weeks of school, I unfortunately fell out of a 3-story window. And when that happened, I broke my neck, I broke my back, and got a spinal cord injury in both of those locations. And just like that, became wheelchair bound. So I grew up being a very, very active person in the outdoors, very independent, a lot of creativity with being able to build things with my hands. And all of a sudden breaking my neck with that spinal cord injury, all that stuff changed immediately. So I was in the hospital for about 5.5 months, basically trying to piece my life back together, both physically and mentally, and figured out how to do a lot of things along the way. But the one thing that escaped me, there just wasn't anything on the market that allowed me to put my shoes on independently. And it wasn't a matter of like just the hand dexterity part of it, because that was a challenge, but it was also the stuffing your foot into a shoe. And, fast forward 15 years later, well, I don't know, Minnie, do you want me to keep going right here?
I would love you to, but I'm actually going to stop you for a second.
Okay,
I always love to dive in a little bit further about the fact that you were, 18?
18, correct.
18 when this happened, and in a second, your life changed. And I certainly don't want to gloss over the amount of work, I'm sure, physically and mentally, it took you, as you said, to piece your life together. Right. Because there's so many people out there listening that may be in that space of trying to piece their life together. They might be in a place that they can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. So being that I know the light that is at the end of the tunnel, I would love you to kind of share a little bit about how did you get through that stage?
Yeah. Well, first off, thank you for stopping me, because that's incredibly important. When I first broke my neck, I mean, I went to a dark place. I really did. I mean, because the only world that I knew was the world that I grew up in, an independent world that I could do everything pretty much. I mean, I was 18 years old, I was invincible, but it turns out that wasn't the case. And so when I broke my neck and became wheelchair bound, and you get that news that, I mean, I remember I was laying on a hospital table, like asking the question, like, what happened? Like, why am I here? Why am I not back in school? Why am I not just going about my day? And one of the nurses, she said, you know what, last night you broke your neck. I mean, you fell out of a 3-story window, you broke your neck, you broke your back. And then she dropped this bomb on me. She says, you'll never walk again. And when you
was it that matter of fact? Like, was there not, it was just factual?
Yep. They cut right to it. I mean, I guess I was probably in like a morphine state just to ease like all the stuff that was going on. But it was just this clouded mess, and there was a lot of information that was floating around me. But those are the words that really penetrated through that cloud and just hit me right to the core. And it was just like, you know what, last night you broke your neck, your back, and you have a spinal cord injury, and you'll never walk again. And as soon as I got that information, I mean, my world just came crumbling down. I mean, I just didn't have the tools to even remotely like wrap my arms around what was just said. And of course you go to denial, saying like, okay, well, that can't be true. I'm going to be that miracle story that's walking out of the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, being in the hospital for 5.5 months, you know, basically trying to put things back together, figuring out like what wheelchair to replace your legs, and how to dress yourself, and how to feed yourself, how to sign your name. I mean, I can't squeeze a pencil, so I have to kind of thread that through my fingers. But my game plan was like, okay, this week I'm gonna get my hands to work. Next week I'm gonna get my arms to work. This week I'm gonna, you know, start doing sit-ups. I mean, it just didn't work that way. And but as I say, you know, my mind went to a really dark place. But it was really the people around me that it was that association that ultimately really believed in me before I believed in myself. I mean, they saw potential that I didn't. I had that fixed mindset that like life was over. And being surrounded with people that, you know, encouraged me to have more of a growth mindset. And it's not like they fixed me, but at least they kind of were able to frame the story in a way that allowed me to make the choice to accept what happened, focus on what I still had, and do the best I can with that. So
Support.
that's the route that I took. And
the support of it, it seems, in many of these conversations is so critical to healing. And
totally.
the support could come in, you know, many different ways. And it sounded like you had an amazing support system. Was there a moment, and I've heard this term a couple of times, and I'm curious if it resonates with you, but a rebirth of when you like kind of had that moment that you accepted this current you, which was different than the past you, and like the switch flipped and your second life happened.
Yeah. You know, in the moment, I definitely wasn't calling it a rebirth. But now looking back on it, yeah, most definitely. I mean, that I would say that rebirth occurred when I made the choice to move forward. But the thing is, like, I made that choice, but it's not like everything magically gets better. You know, it was a daily grind. I mean, it's like you make the choice to move forward, like accepting what you have. But I mean, it's really hard to shake that memory of the past. I mean, I still, it still gets to me. But at the same time, I'm not imprisoned by it. You know, it's incredible how this injury has opened up so many opportunities I never would have had before.
Exactly. And I think that's the piece that I definitely want to underscore, is how this led you down a path that probably, I'm going to guess, you would have never gone down before this happened. And that's to a global brand of Billy Footwear. But I also want people to understand that you are a husband, you're a father, you are living your best life in the body that you have now. And I like to tell that piece of the story, because I think that will give some acknowledgement that you are you're doing your thing in as typical a way that you possibly can. And you know, at least from my perspective, are doing it right and living, you know, your best life. And I think that is something that definitely needs to be said. So when you started Billy, it was obviously from a personal place, but then you know, probably started realizing how many millions of people that this was actually going to help. I know that I had that experience with understanding that Oliver's clothing challenges weren't just about Oliver. There were a billion people on our planet that struggled with clothing challenges. What did that feel like when you're like, wait a second, I'm kind of on something that's going to change people's lives while they live it?
Right. Wow. Well, so what happened was, so it's myself. So let me back up a tad. So my co-founder, it's like, we were founded with two people. It's myself and my co-founder, Darren Donaldson, and we grew up together, friends together. And we had kind of lost contact with each other, but got reacquainted. And he happened to be working on a shoe project of his own. And I just said, you know what? When we were catching up, I said, you know what? Since being in a chair, I've never been able to wear my shoes. I've never been able to put them on independently. And I just said, you know what? I've got a different idea that I think will work. And he happened to have people we could make a prototype. And that's what we did. We made a prototype that had a zipper functionality that I could use. And when we got the sample, I put the shoe on, and that was the first time in literally half a lifetime. I broke my neck at 18. I put my shoes on again independently at 36.
Wow.
And the moment was so special that it's like, we got to share this. So when we went into it, it wasn't a matter of having an understanding of how big the market would be. It started off as like just trying to overcome a challenge that I had. And we accomplished that. And again, the moment was so incredibly special. It was one of those deals that it's like, well, we can't keep this to ourselves. We have to share this. And it's like, okay, now the question was like, well, how do we share it? So we started by doing a Kickstarter campaign, and we started with 2 kids' shoes, 2 women's shoes, and 3 men's shoes. And we sent it out there, and the response was overwhelming. And it's like, okay, well, I guess we need to expand now. Where are we going to go? So we started with kids' shoes. And again, the response was overwhelming. We got teamed with amazing retail partners, and the story and the product kept getting out there. And then it's like, okay, that was successful. So now we can go smaller in size to toddlers and start bringing in adults. And then that was successful. And then they say, okay, now we need wider shoes. Like, okay, now we're making wider shoes. So it started with this small little embryo of an idea. And it just keeps growing and growing and growing. And the story gets out there, and the testimonials that we have from these customers, it's just, you can feel the tears between the lines, because they're having life-changing moments that they're able to put their shoes on for the first time. And I can resonate with that story. And I don't know, it's just so cool to share that. But when we first went into it, we had no idea how big the market would be. And
but it sounds like you pay a tremendous amount of, you and Darren pay a tremendous amount of attention to the feedback. And it sounds like it's not only do you pay attention to it, you implement it. And that is something that I think is kind of the gift of people with disabilities, is that they are very willing and able to share what is going to make the product better. And you receive it and you implement it. And that's what makes the greatest, most authentic process, because it truly is for the people, by the people. Right. And I would love you, if you could, to show the shoe so our viewers could see how it works. Is that possible?
Yeah, sure. Hold on. Let me just grab a pair here.
Okay, great. And just so our viewers know, the product is available for both kids and adults. And it is available in quite a few locations. But if they just wanted to go to your site, can you just let everybody know what that is, please?
Sure, no problem. So our personal website is billyfootwear.com. And on that website, there are, if you go to the landing page in the top banner there are lots of, there's a tab up there that says store locations, and it'll list all of our retail partners, which are both in the United States and abroad. So we have lots in Canada, we have Europe, we have Australia. So it's been pretty remarkable how far we've grown.
Incredible. And I know you're also on Zappos Adaptive. And
Big time.
I believe, are you on Every Human?
We are, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, good call out. Those guys are amazing.
Matthew, Matthew was on the show. We love Matthew.
Oh, good. Oh,
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
So here it is. I mean, here's a regular shoe. You can see it, right? Regular sneaker. But the difference is there's a zipper that goes on the outside and around the toe. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, perfect.
And I'm going to use my teeth. So this is going to look kind of funny. You're going to get the real deal here. So there it is. That is sorry.
No, take your time. Amazing.
There it is. That's the difference.
And as you noted, not only does it help with not being able to tie your shoes, but the way that the foot goes into the shoe can be challenging. So this allows for a different entry point of the foot into the shoe, which certainly makes the difference. How about with AFOs or orthotics? Can it work with that?
Yeah, so that's a great call out. And it's funny because, back on your earlier question, talking about the audience, we had no idea. I did not know anybody. I didn't grow up with anybody that wore AFOs, that used AFOs. So I had no idea what that meant. We did a Kickstarter campaign and somebody reached out asking the question, did these work well with AFOs? And I basically said, let me get back to you. And I had to Google what's an AFO. And then it popped up like, oh, yes, most definitely. And it's because of that, an AFO, you had that rigid 90-degree turn. It's like shoving the foot into a shoe.
Yes.
So being able to drop it in unobstructed, they struggle. I mean, an AFO user has the same challenge that I do. So yeah, that unobstructed entry works great. And you talked about the feedback from customers. We got a lot of feedback early on from AFO users. And it was essentially because, those braces you need more volume inside the shoe. So one of the requests was, can you make the inserts that go in the shoe, can you make them removable? And we just called up the factory and asked the question and they said yes. So having just a mom reach out going, you know what, can you do this for us? And being a small company, we said, sure, let's do it. Another one was having some adjustability. So having laces with the shoe. The laces are functional, so it gives some adjustability for volume. Again, that was a request from a customer, and being a smaller company on the grow, we said, sure, we can do that. So there's a lot of big things coming in the future, but that's the type of feedback that we get from customers, and it's fun to be able to listen.
Wow, it's amazing. And I mean, that's how we grew as well. I mean, I only knew my world with Oliver. I didn't know what your world was, or somebody with a limb difference or Down syndrome as it related to clothing. And I learned so much from the population, just saying, you know what, I think here's a better idea to do it. Let's make the Velcro square larger so it doesn't, it can line up easier. Brilliant. Thank you. And we were kind of able to implement that. But I do have to reiterate what Billy just said, that huge things are happening in the future for Billy Footwear. So definitely keep in touch. Definitely go to his website. Social media handles are what?
We keep it simple. It's at Billy Footwear.
Perfect. Follow them on social so you can hear the breaking news of where the product is going. I'm so excited because it's huge. Before we go, I'd like to ask all of my guests one final question of something that's very important to me. And I love some of the answers that I've gotten from the show. I am a very big believer in a vision board and putting your hopes and dreams and wishes of who you want to meet or where you want to go in life. And I keep mine by my side at all times.
Oh, look at that. That's awesome.
Yes, thank you. If we got to peek onto your vision board, what would we see?
Oh my gosh. Wow, what a simple question, yet so big.
And it's all right answers, not to worry.
Right. It's incredible. I mean, vision, there's the big dream, and there's also just making it through the day. Yeah. And, you touched on, a lot of things are happening in my world outside of footwear. I mean, married, and I've got a 2-year-old, and that's just been life-changing. We'd love to have another kiddo, so that would be incredible. But our business is all about, adding value, right? It's all about our making value and adding value and making a measurable difference in the world. Because when I reflect back on my life, when you crunch the numbers falling out of a 3-story window, the math tells you that you shouldn't survive. You shouldn't survive that fall. But for some reason, I did. And every day that I wake up in the morning, it's a blessing. It's a blessing that I really couldn't have had. So I try to make the most of it. So when I look at my vision board, it's really, I don't really have any finite pictures on it, but it's just an overall vision of doing everything I can to try to add value and make a measurable difference in every single day, and try to just help, mentor, whatever the case may be. But the vision is to just make the most of this life, because it truly is a blessing, and do what I can to make the world an easier place to live in.
Love it. Couldn't have scripted a better way to end the episode. And as always, I just adore you. And I feel lucky to have had my journey lead me to you. So thank you so much for everything that you're doing. I just adore you.
Mindy, thank you. Thank you so much.
If you would like to be on the Gamut Network, please email us at talent@gamutmanagement.com. Please also don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel at the Gamut Network, as well as follow us on social media at Gamut Management. Thank you again. Bye.